Good morning, viewers, and welcome to the morning program, The Dailies on Eco Television International. This is a program that is based on news and current affairs. We tend to look at various stories that have been making the rounds on our Nigerian newspaper. I'm Sarah Elisha Dasham, and I have with me Rachel Tanzi. Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning, Sarah.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine.
All right, let's quickly run through the papers, and I'll be starting with the New Telegraph newspaper. We have the first one here: report failure to tackle oil theft may spark social unrest. Downside, we have Nigeria to earn 46 billion naira from the VAS in 2022. You can find that on page 17. And we have on the PSC chair, Muslimu Smith resigns. You can read more of that on page 8 and 29. And we have Nigerian gets $25 million worth of J&J COVID-19 vaccines from MTN. That's really a great one coming from the contribution, and MTN are playing on the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine, and this to raise an awareness for those who are yet to get their self-tested and also get their vaccination. It's important that we do just that because the COVID-19 is still very much with us.
Yes.
Still on the New Telegraph newspaper, we have on revenue shortfall, Senate wants revitalization of coconut, cocoa, granite, rubber plantation. I remember we were looking at cashew was it Tuesday? Yeah, on Tuesday we looked at Nigeria eyeing the cashew nuts for export, and we can see that because of revenue shortfall, Senate wants revitalization of cocoa, granite, and rubber plantation. And I think we've said this over and over and over. We've been concentrating so much on our oil, forgetting the fact that we have another much more than oil somewhere. Billions are buried on the ground, and we're yet to realize that. I mean, take a look at actually turn our attention to. So I think it's not just for the Senate to actually be wanting that, but I just hope that that bill will be passed and then much will be done, not just about even passing the bill, but we have to look at security. The farmers that are going to farm them, are they secured? Are you providing them with enough loans, very soft loans for that matter, so that they'll be able to afford it? The seedlings, the atmosphere, and every other thing, fertilizer and all that. I mean, if you know how much a bag of fertilizer costs right now, it's really, really something. So I hope that with all these things, playing out, the government will be able to look into how farmers can actually have a very favorable environment. And I hope that when we realize what we can actually realize from them, I mean, we even have our tin and our coal and all that,
And also
so I hope
to add to that, I feel the unfortunate thing is that we shouldn't be at the beginning, but it feels like when it comes to agriculture, we are at the beginning. And it's sad because it's supposed to be a continuous process. Just as we mentioned about cashew, for long, agriculture has always been like a backbone for us, like aside crude oil. But then every time you see these people mentioning this thing, you can see that we are still at the beginning when we are supposed to be somewhere in the middle, like bigger than where we are. And then you can see that we are at the beginning, and then it's very sad. But I want to hope that we might be at the beginning, but with consistency, we will get to somewhere as a country. Not that 10 years later, we will still be talking about farming cashew as if we didn't know of its importance 20 years ago. So I just hope that's not the story.
And I hope we're also looking at going digital, because it's not about being man-man right now.
Exactly.
More manpower is needed so that we stop depending on them so much. Well, still on the New Telegraph, the big story here say on 2023, CUPP alerts secret suit to notify the BVA's youth plot to remove INEC chair. Says voters registration compromise, and the poll said we have learned lesson from Ekiti and Oshun. This is coming from Yakubu, the chairman of INEC. Same fate candidacy plot to Islamize Nigeria. This is coming from the Anglican primate, and we've seen that over and over. In fact, from the way, I think was it yesterday or 2 days back, we saw where 1.1 million Nigerians their voter registration was invalid. We have about 7 million Nigerians that were derived, or possibly they were deprived of the opportunity to register. It's either as a result of faulty machines from INEC. We had issues and stories, even first-hand information from corrupt INEC officials that instead of just doing the free registration, they will ask for a little token, as little as 500, 1,000 naira before you can actually register. Now we can see there's also a plot here, secret plot to remove the INEC. I remember when he came for second term, or people were like, this is not a political, why is he giving an appointment as if it's more like a political position? And we can see back and forth concerning that. The Anglican primate is coming out to say the same fake candidacy is a plot to Islamize Nigeria. You won't blame people when they begin to speak in that manner, because when you begin to look at the agenda of certain political parties or the agenda of certain politicians, it tends to look in that manner. But one thing is for sure, that at the end of the day, we are just for the betterment of Nigeria. At the end of the day, we'll not get our attention so focused on doing things that are not necessary at this point in time. So I hope whatever the plot is, we'll just keep following the story closely. We'll bring the first-hand information to our viewers concerning all that is needed concerning the BVA's use and the plot. And also we saw the cyber crime, looking at the fact that the Ekiti and the Oshun election was one thing, but then to conduct election come 2023 is another thing. So we hope all that will be fixed. Of course, Rachel. Still on New Telegraph, buyers of 6 Lagos properties must pay 2001 rate. This is coming from the federal government. Approves new regulation for use and disposal of public assets. The Port Harcourt refinery to resume production by December. This is coming from Silver. FEC approves 28.1 billion for FCT infrastructure and OK's 2 billion naira for facility in Bayelsa gas hub. Reports rank Lagos 4th in Africa's dollar millionaires. Wow, this is really a great one. Just one state out of the other 36 we have. So imagine when we begin to realize what Kano can bring. Imagine what we begin to realize what other, states. Because we know the Niger Delta are the one where we depend mostly on oil. When you go to Kano and Lagos, that is where there's so much of...
In the middle belt, we have solid minerals.
Of course.
What our government doing about it? Like, when you look at it, we also have the capacity to rank somewhere for a particular thing. Maybe Lagos, the trade and all of that. But then what about our solid minerals? And you can see that the government is actually doing nothing about it, which is very sad. Because even if we can just have 30% of this mineral, if our government can be in control of it, and let even leave illegal mining out of the way, because that's a thing that is disturbing us here. I think we also have enough resources to be able to compete, but then what is the government doing about it? We know we have it, but then we're sitting on it and doing nothing about it.
Richard, when you were talking about this illegal mining, I heard of some government officials being even involved in this illegal mining.
It won't be a surprising
because
thing.
Definitely you can't expect that it's just a commoner that will be able to run that.
And the foreigners that are doing this, so how did they get here? How are they so bold to come and harvest what we have? And we're looking, you should know that we might be speculating, but then we have every reason to, because who is giving them the permission to do this thing? Like, they are here and they are doing this thing and we know of it. If me, a common man, knows about this illegal mining, do you think the government don't know about it? And then what are they doing about it? So until they do something about it, we'll keep being a poor state and wishing we can get somewhere, and we'll never get there.
We will get there, Richard. It's a matter of time. We just need the political will, and then things will be better in this country. I'll have another story which is on insecurity. Nigerians are ramping for safety. This is coming from Khan. Buhari condemns attempt on Ifeanyi's life, says he's awaiting military response to the attack. That you can find on page 3 and also page 8. We have a picture story here where we can see the Lagos State Governor with some two people. You can actually grab the New Telegraph newspaper and read any of the stories that's of interest to you. Let's move to Daily Independent, Rachel.
All right, on the Daily Independent, on the top of the page, over 400 out of 541 MDAs risk scrapping, says the Senate, backs implementation of Orosanye's report to save economy. And still on ASU strike, FEC criticizes NANS for blocking Lagos-Ibadan expressway, says right to protest not reason to breach public peace. They can be correct in a way, but then there are consequences for every action. You don't expect the student to... They can't hang on the air now. They have to stand somewhere. So if you say it's okay for them to protest, then I think whatever follows it is also acceptable in a way. And the big story on Independent 2023 general election, CUPP uncovers plot to use court to stop use of BVAS, raises the alarm over alleged plan to sack INEC chairman. More of that story on page 29. And on the right side of the paper, telecom operators gain over 11.4 million subscribers in 7 months. More of that story on page 6. Federal government okays local production of vaccine in commercial quantity. More of that story on page 7. But then, are we taking the right risks or what? I don't know, like production of vaccines in local quantity for like but then for commercial quantity, like can we?
We can, Rachel. Just
Right.
like I said earlier on, all this based on our political will as a nation. Because we saw already federal government already, because all these vaccines have been tested and they've been approved. So rather than we always depending on other nations to always provide solutions to what is happening in Nigeria, we have very good medical personnel. No wonder they're flying out of the country.
Yeah.
So we have the capacity, we have the capability to do that. All we need is the political will, the good atmosphere, and before we realize it, voila, we're able to do whatever it is that is needed. So I believe that we have the capacity.
Yes, we can. But another concern for me is that I noticed that any quality thing in Nigeria always tends to be more expensive than whatever is being imported. So I hope that won't be the case. I hope that when we finally get to do these vaccines, which we can see clearly that we can do it, I hope then everybody can access it, not that it becomes something good and then a lot of people can access it, because there are cases of a lot of things that, okay, our products, in as much as they are the best, they turn out to be way expensive and then not enough to go around and things like that. Still on the Independent, Police Commission Chairman Smith resigns amid recruitment crisis. More of that story on page 7. Buhari presents 2023 budget October. More of that story on page 7. AFRIMA unveils nominees list for 2022 edition. Public voting commences globally September 25th. More of that story on page 6. And on the right side of the paper, we're using digitally controlled system to reserve oil production losses, and NPCL. And there's a picture story still with the Lagos governor, and then another story is Southwest PDP resolves to back Atiku Abubakar, insists IU must go. Your request achievable but must follow due process. More of that story on page 29. Supreme Court affirms Odi as PDP Ebonyi gubernatorial candidate. More of that story on page 7, and that's all the news on the Daily Independent.
All right, let's take a look at the world of business on Business Day newspaper. Negative real return hurt Nigerian investors and savers. You can read more of that. And also we have Nigerians oil rig count fall for the first time in 2022. Turn that to page 31 for more of that. Why INEC can't tackle vote buying and others. This is coming from Mamu. I find this statement very, very, it's so conflicting. Why would the INEC chairman tell us why INEC can't tackle vote buying and others? You have the right to do that. Even though I remember in one of the interviews that was being conducted, he stated the fact that INEC do not have their own police. They do not have all that is needed to persecute offenders of that form. It's just that when you're being found the vote buying or anything, they hand you over to the police. But we know how these things sometimes end up. We have some very few corrupt police, and if somebody in a very high position come, they just buy them off, and before you realize it, we still go back. We saw vote buying very seriously during that time. So I believe there's something that INEC can do about vote buying, because if we're talking about vote buying, it's not just, we're not just looking at you giving your pets. You cannot sell your future for just 5,000 or 10,000 naira. What now satisfaction it will be, regardless of what the future has. But it's high time we sit down and we think about the future. Already here, the federal government are complaining that NAS that were on the street actually always have the youth on the street,
You will.
whether you like it or not, because when they are not on the street, where else will they protest for?
That they don't have what to do. So let's go to
That I stand to disagree. They are not idle. When your needs are not being met, Rachel, you have a right to go meet the authority and say, my needs are not being met. If you're working in an organization and a worker deserves his wages at the end of the day, if they do not pay your salary, you have the right. I have worked for this. This is my right. The students pay school fees, Rachel. So we cannot say they are idle. They have the right. We want to go back to school. If they are idle, possibly they would have been causing confusion, robbing people, breaking glasses, but they were having a peaceful protest. We saw that some even position, some traditional rulers were on their way, and they actually stepped down to talk to them. They are peaceful. These are just people with placards asking that let our needs be met. This is one after the many. Are we going to talk about those in captivity? We're still looking at the countdown for those who are in the Kaduna train that were being kidnapped. Recently, we saw a woman that was giving birth, and they are still asking for a sum of 50 million naira, and she's still beating a breastfeeding mother. Now you can see issues that lead to all this vote buying. So these are things that we need to unravel. And I know INEC cannot work on its own. They definitely need the help of other sister bodies. But I hope that we all put our hands together to see that we can definitely tackle vote buying, regardless of what it looks like. I think when we start persecuting offenders and then a very severe punishment is being given, whoever is the person at the other end will say, if this can be done to this person, I am not an exception. That can also be done to me. So I think it's high time we, sit up and do what is expected. Well, let's look at other stories still on Business Day newspaper. Search interest data shows Tinubu breaking into the north. Nigerians AFD signed 25 million euro deal to strengthen power transmission. And we have air travelers seek use of new Lagos terminal as old one disappoint. And we have the NESG Economic Action Agenda 1993. You can read that on page 16 and page 17 of the Business Day newspaper. And that's all on Business Day newspaper, Rachel.
All right, on the Daily Trust, Buhari to present 19.76 trillion naira 2023 budget in October. Senators OK Orensanye report say over 400 MDAs risk scraping. Or that story on page 16. Nigeria, French agency signed 25-6. And then on the big story, on the Daily Trust, call for state police. ACF, NEF, Afenifere, PANDEF back northern governors and monarchs. Ekiti passes bill, Kano in 2 weeks, Jigawa to follow soon. It's nullity without National Assembly approval, says Professor Yadudu. And then on the left side of the paper, it says Southwest PDP meets Atiku, demands Ayu's resignation. With more of that story on page 31. And then housemate was forced to resign as PSC chairman. That story can be found on page 8. Police kill kidnappers sharing ransom in forest, page 29. I think that's a good story. It means they are doing their job and they are finding them in the act. So it's not like an aftermath of something, but while they were sharing the ransom in the forest. So it means it was at the process. So these people were not sleeping on the case. And since last week, we have been getting some positive, starting with the DSS and then being able to rescue and going like killing some bandits and all of that. I feel this is also in line. If the police and every other law enforcement agency are doing their jobs, then this will continue to happen. I want to believe this is hope that, okay, we're not sleeping on this thing, that we are fighting hard to see that this type of crime is no longer found in our country. And I hope that this will be more of the stories we get to read concerning kidnapping and other unrest in the country. At the bottom of the page, we have 23 Abuja-Kaduna train passengers still in captivity 186 days after. More of that story on page 6, but I would like to say this feels like another Chibok happening. You know, it started like a joke, And the countdown just went on, and before we knew it, it was 360 something days. Before we know it, 2 years gone. And then we started forgetting, and we thank God that there were people still on that
Bethel Baptist High School still in captivity. And if you see the countdown, for the one student, we have 428 days. And for that of the 11 schoolgirls of FCT Bernie Yori, we have 455 days. Now, just like you said, we hope this will go in that same way. And that is why we keep adding up our voices to the voices of others.
Yes.
We need to be activists because we want a change in Nigeria. We want something positive. You want a situation whereby in future you can send your kids to school, you can send your word to school, and your mind is addressed because you know that they're in school, they are safe. But you see right now, the way things are going right now, even if it's a day school you're sending your child, your mind is not at rest.
Yes.
You have to call to be sure, ask the teacher, or even in tertiary institutions have gotten that bad that you have to be sure that your child is in school. You get the way issues are. So we hope that things will get better in this country eventually. Well, let me jump now to the first newspaper. Buhari present 19.76 trillion naira 2023 budget in October. This is coming from the Speaker, Bajabia Miller. We have Supreme Court declares Ifeanyi Odi Ebonyi PDP governor candidate. The big story which is on PDP crisis, Ayu's fate hanging in the balance as Makinde Atiku disagree on demands for party chairman's resignation. Ayu must step down to allow the South replace him, be fully included, or your governor insists. He can't go now unless PDP constitution is amended. This is coming from Atiku. The back and forth on PDP crisis, Ayu, with all that is happening, is on a trip somewhere for holiday, and it's like, you guys can actually handle whatever the issues. But then, importantly, I think just like I've said, the campaign will be by the corner. It's expected that everybody should put his house in order. Regardless of which political party it is, put your house in order. Whatever the issue is, they need to find a solution so that we can move forward and see what it entails for, issues like this can actually stand as,
It
very
is already, but like when we were talking and we were saying it sounds like a joke. It was first with Wiki, and now it's beginning to look like it's deeper than what we thought it is, and it's not going away anytime soon because this is the second week, or maybe I'm not even counting well, that PDP seems to be the big story, and with internal crisis here and there. So it will affect. It's going to have some effect in the long run. Except if they stop it, it's going to affect their campaign. It's going to affect even the people's trust in them because, as I mentioned, nobody would want to be associated with a party that is having this much crisis. And we are looking forward to a Nigeria that people will come and start working. Are they going to solve their crisis first before they decide to face Nigeria if they eventually win? Or what is going to be the case? It feels like all the promises Atiku is making of 100 days will not even come to pass if his party are having this issue, because we know that they have their caucus and all the ministers and other appointments still comes from that party as we know it. So if they are not settled within them, will the promises they are making even come to happen as they are saying it? So it's going to affect them unless they do something about it really quick.
Yeah, Richard, you said except you are not counting properly. This crisis have been lingering for a very, very long time. From the very first day they had their primaries, they have been having this issue. And we just hope whatever it is, just like you said, they will settle it. Well, still on first news, we have recruitment crisis. Police Commissioner Chair Smith resigned over clash with the IGP. And we have 23 trained victims still in captivity 186 days after abduction. JAM demands financial autonomy for UTME fee deduction. Now we see ASU are seeking for autonomy, that JAM should not interfere in the giving of admission. JAM right now is seeking for autonomy, faulting UTME fee reduction. We'll just keep our fingers crossed and we hope that more will be done concerning that. Road infrastructure tax credit scheme, one of the federal government's greatest innovation. This is coming from the FRS boss. Woman robs bank to pay sister's cancer treatment. Well, this is really a sad one. And at the end of the day, we are not saying that what she did was the right thing to rob a bank. But regardless of what the issue is, There's always dignity in labor, that you work with your hands for whatever the issue is. Stop setting unreasonable target for staff, CIBN tells banks. And we have a public notice here that if you really want to know about that, you can get the first news and you can read more about the public notice and any other story that is of interest to you.
All right, going to the Al Jazeera newspaper. Road tax credit scheme will accelerate infrastructure development, the FIRS. And then the big news is cash crunch. Senate backs Orasaye report. Move to block revenue leakage. Rejects 6 trillion naira tax waiver. And on the right side of the paper, we can see Sardauna Forum spokesman backs constitutional role for monarchs. More of that story on page 2. We're tracking terror sponsor, says the army. More of that story on page 11. 2022 Hajj. NAHCUN counts gains, says no going back on improvements. More of that story on page 4. Cotton, Ogun targets third largest producer in Africa. And then there's another good story again regarding all the cashew. We're talking about the rubber, and here is Osun State being tagged the third largest producers in Africa, which is a good news, and I hope that the state will do more about that, and then it can grow from state level to federal government, and then it keeps growing. More of that story on page 4. Take advantage of 3.4 trillion naira AFCTA fund. Federal government urges bank. More of that story on page 24. And at the bottom of the page, PDP crisis. Absence of lawyer stills Wike sued against Atiku. Ayade locks out staff over lateness. More of that story on page 9, and that's all the news on Al Jazeera today.
All right, thank you, Rachel. I think right at this moment, we'd love to take a time out where we can open the phone lines for our callers and you can call us. Remember, we're live on Facebook and some comments actually drop in. So when we're right from the break, I'm going to read the comment and also allow you to be part of the conversation by calling us and let us hear what your views are concerning any of the stories. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's still the Dailies on Echo Television International. I'm Sarah Elisha Dasham and Rachel Tanzi is still here with me. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, our phone numbers are displayed on your screen right now. So please do well to be part of the, the ongoing conversation in the studio here, and call us and let us hear what your feels are, what your views are. I mean, whatever it is that's going through your mind concerning the stories we've read, the PDP crisis, the issue left and right. So we'd love to hear what you have to say about it. And remember, we're live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can drop your comment and we'll read it real time. Let me read some of the comment drop in on Facebook. We have, this is coming from Blessing Mefanya. She said, sending love from here. Thank you so much, Blessing. We have Timmy Peter Bello. He said, good morning, ladies. Thank you so much for bringing newspaper headlines to us in our place of comfort, offices, homes, business places. Keep the flag flying. Echo Television International. Thank you so much, Timmy, for that beautiful conversation. Government orders buyers of 6 Lagos property work on Ekweremadu's health. Other news here we have is on revenue shortfall. Senate backs mega of the MDAs. And we have on PDP crisis, which is on most of the paper we read this morning. IU can only be removed by amending the party constitution, coming from the PDP candidates. The presidential speaks, coming from the accused ex-US envoy, Jafra Issa. and police, DSS, and U.S. Embassy keeps mum. And what he was saying, he said about the fact that he was supposed to be the one to take the bomb. We'll keep our fingers crossed concerning. I hope more interrogation will be done about it. So whatever it is, will bring you agitate. Have a story here that say 5 die in Bauchi boat misshape. This really is sad one. We send our love and condolences to the family involved. And that's all.
Case 2.04 billion naira for internal road construction at NCDMB gas hub. 2023, Southwest PDP resolves to back Atiku, insists IU must go. Still on ASU strike, state pro-chancellor.
Tired of hearing news of this form. It's not really a very nice news to listen to in the morning or any other day for that matter. So I just hope more will be done about that. Still on the CNPP alleged plot by the 80 Constitution is amended, coming from Atiku, with the riders may pay more for UTME. This is still coming from the JAM, which you can get on page 4. And recruitment crisis, we have the PSC Chair Smith resign, which you can read on page 10. The picture story here, we can see the National Security Advisor, retired Major General Babagana. We have Chief of Staff to the President. We have Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, the Vice President, Yemil Ziba. And we hope whatever deliberations they have, especially when it comes to education.
On the blueprint, FCC, Army partner against terror, PDP crisis, remain 2023 election. For fairness, party chair must go, Makinde insists. Says if we must restructure Nigeria, PDP should lead the way. First ballot may not produce president. Hunkuyi. That's in page 9, and then you can see more of the big story on page 6. And then on the left side of the page, we have Kaduna Local Government Councillor appoints 32 SAs. Well, you can see that story on page 8. And then PSC Chair Smith resigns amidst controversy. More of that story on page 13. And on the downside of the paper, we have over 400 NDAs risk scraping over low revenue. Says the Senate. Orosanya panel recommends retention of 106. Fragmented tax system reason for low revenue, says NAMI. More of that story on page 7. And still on the blueprint, Africa's $2 trillion market, $2 trillion market eyes Nigeria and then others. FEC approves 28 billion naira infrastructure for Wasa district. More of that story on page 7. And then flood destroys over 200 houses, displaces thousands in Benue. That's very sad, and if you want to know more of that, you can read that on page 9. Fuel scarcity hits river, disrupts socio-economic activities. More of that story on page 14. Merchants now accept e-naira payment on our platform, says Flutterwave. If you want to know more of that, if you're on the e-commerce business and this will benefit you, you can read more of that on page 22. And that's all the news on Blueprint.
All right, let's take a look at the Voice of Liberty, where we have PDP crisis. Atiku Wike camp storm court over legality of PDP presidential primary. And we have attack on Ifeanyi Oba, but it's barbaric. This is coming from President Muhammadu Buhari. Says we are monitoring the situation. And then we have placed Peter Obi and supporters under security watch. Kenyamo urges security agency. Well, we've been having that since on Monday. Issues coming concerning what Peter Obi said and others. Well, you're interested in that, you can grab the Voice of Liberty and read detail of that story. And we see President Buhari to present the 2023 budget in October, coming from Femi Bajabiamila. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Bajabiamila, has disclosed that President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to present the 2023 budget to the National Assembly in October this year. PDP crisis, IU must resign, Governor Makinde insists. And on 2023, the North youth unfairly treated by APC leadership structure, coming from Tinubu and Shetima Media Group. Still on 2023, Yoruba Welfare Group react as Afenifere dumps Tinubu for Peter Obi. Still on 2023, we have the CUPP uncovers plot to stop use of PIVAs by secret legal suit. Raises alarm over plot to sack the INEC chairman. And you can read more of that too. And that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On this day, at the top of the page, federal government, Port Harcourt refinery resume production by December. Approves 2 billion naira for facilities in Bayelsa gas hub. OKs 28.1 billion naira for augmentation of FCT infrastructure. Gives nod to local production of COVID-19 vaccine. Buhari to present 19.76 trillion naira appropriation bill to National Assembly next month. More of that story on page 5. End of COVID-19 in sight, says World Health Organization chief. More of that story on page 6. Still on this day, NNPC and NAS on collision course as National Oil Company shuns Senate summons. Senate backs scrapping of 400 federal agencies to save economy. You can continue reading that on page 10. And still in 2023 election, Ayu must go. Southwest PDP tells Atiku, further saying revolves to back party's presidential standard bearer. Ex-VP says request achievable but must follow due process. PDP candidate has capacity to unite Nigeria, Makinde declare. Epezu, PDP needs genuine reconciliation to be victorious. And then there's a picture story. Sanolu wins award for exceptional contribution to infrastructure development. That's a very good one, and I hope that other governors, not only him, keeps up with that. And they must not get awarded, but then they should have in mind that we should strive for excellence, whether I will get this or not, and then put my state on the map. It's possible. We have the resources, and as long as we have leaders that are willing to do the work, Nigeria will grow. And then still on this day, embattled chairman of Police Service Commission, Musiliu Smith, resigns. And that's all the news on this day.
All right, let's take a look at this Nigerian paper. Lassa fever, 109 cases confirmed as death toll hit 170 in 25 states. Really sad one. Lassa fever keep going up and up. We saw monkeypox Nigeria being the highest in Africa, and here we have Lassa fever. You know, a lot of awareness needs to be done. I won't get tired of saying that we need to do this awareness down to the grassroots level, to everywhere in the rural area. It will be surprising to know that when it comes to election, most of our politicians know the routes to those rural areas.
Yes,
but issues like this don't get to those people, and you begin to wonder what the problem is. I just hope that we will not keep going down and down issues of medical health, but more needs to be done to actually safeguard the lives of Nigerians. Especially, are you going to die by, okay, we have a caller. Hello, good morning. Hello, Stephen from Akodi. Can you hear me? Okay, Felix.
Hello?
Hello, good morning. Please go on, we can hear you.
Hello? Hello?
We can hear you. Move away from your TV set.
Hello? I can't hear you.
We can hear you, Felix.
Okay, I think I have to cut you short, Felix. If you can, call us because you on ASU strikes. The Senate asks the federal government to scrap the file on page 6. Next.
Good morning.
Hello, Mr. Felix.
It's unfortunate I can't hear you.
We can hear you, sir.
I think it's your network if you can't hear.
Yes,
So
I
you
can hear you
do.
now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Please, I can't still hear you.
Okay, I have to end your call, Mr. Felix. I think your network is quite bad, but if your network gets better before the end of the show, you can call us back, please, Mr. Felix. Thank you so much for that effort. Well, and that's all on this day paper. Rachel, let's move further.
All right. On the nation, Okeredolu Adeboye heads teams for Tinubu. Or that story on page 4. Buhari to present budget to National Assembly next month. You can read all of that on page 8. Ayetola Adeleke bicker over report of overvoting. Buyers of seized Lagos property to pay 201 to
Okay, we have another
I
call.
want to
Hello,
contribute
Peter from
about
Macaulay. Good morning.
this clinic, this man's daughter clinic. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
I think our network is a little bit, we'll try to fix that, or maybe the network from the other end. So we hope that
FIRS, why they're not receiving his award.
Morning. Yeah.
Still on The Nation, Makinde leads Southwest PDP on IU must go call. More of that story or yours. Now banks stop PTA, BTA payments in cash as scarcity persists.
Government, European Union and AFD complaints in 2020 resign amidst police recruitment crisis. PDP crisis and reasons grown and seeks government intervention, and we hope the government will actually come to their intervention soon. Tackle insecurity, can Anglican primate tells the federal government. And custom intercept 30,000 litre tanker carrying dirty diesel. This is what we're talking, to read on to become your way.